It sounds like the beginning of a myth, the kind whispered around a fire and dismissed at sunrise. But this monster did not live in legend. It walked, swam, hunted, and thrived in a place that today feels completely incapable of supporting life at all: Antarctica. Not the frozen desert of endless ice we know now, but a continent once breathing, steaming, alive. A land where rain fell instead of snow, where forests stretched to the horizon, where rivers cut through fern-covered valleys, and where creatures so immense and strange would seem impossible if we hadn't pulled their bones from the ice ourselves. To imagine Antarctica as a jungle requires dismantling everything we think we know about Earth's extremes. Today, it is the coldest, driest, windiest continent on the planet. Temperatures can drop low enough to freeze exposed skin in seconds. Nothing grows beyond moss and microbes. No trees, no reptiles, no monsters. And yet, buried beneath kilometers of ice lie the fingerprints of a world that was once violently different. Fossilized leaves, tree trunks turned to stone, ancient pollen locked in sediment, and among them, the remains of predators that had no business existing near the South Pole, unless the South Pole itself was once a very different place. Travel back deep into Earth's past to a time when Antarctica was not isolated by circumpolar currents, not locked in ice, not abandoned by life. The continent was once connected to South America, Australia, and Africa, part of the great southern supercontinent Gondwana. Warm ocean currents flowed freely, atmospheric carbon dioxide levels were far higher than today. The planet was in a greenhouse state, and the poles were no longer death sentences for life. They were frontiers. Forests grew where glaciers now dominated, not small, struggling trees, but dense, towering vegetation. Ancient conifers rose like cathedral pillars. Ginkgo trees spread fan-shaped leaves under a humid sky. Tree ferns formed thick undergrowth, and flowering plants had begun to claim territory. Seasonal darkness still existed, months without sunlight, but the cold had not yet arrived to weaponize it. These forests adapted. Growth rings in fossilized wood show rapid summer expansion, proof of long, bright seasons fueled by endless daylight. And where forests grow, ecosystems follow. In the rivers and coastal waters of ancient Antarctica, something enormous waited, a predator so perfectly designed for its environment that it ruled the waterways with little competition. Its skull alone could stretch longer than a human body. Its jaws were lined with teeth shaped like railway spikes, built not for slicing, but for crushing. This was no dinosaur, no crocodile, no shark. It was something more unsettling. It was a giant amphibian, known to science as Prionosuchus-like temnospondyls and their polar relatives. These creatures resembled massive salamanders, but the resemblance ends quickly once size enters the picture. Some stretched over 6 meters long. Their bodies were flat and muscular, adapted for ambush. Their eyes sat high on the skull, allowing them to remain almost entirely submerged while watching the shoreline. Anything that came to drink was a potential meal: fish, smaller reptiles, early mammals, even other predators. These were not animals that fled the cold. They existed before Antarctica ever froze, before ice erased their world. And they were not alone. On land, the forest floor trembled beneath the steps of creatures that felt like experiments evolution would never repeat. Massive herbivorous reptiles browsed on vegetation while carnivores stalked them through shadowed undergrowth. Early dinosaurs wandered through polar forests, adapted to long periods of darkness, their metabolism and behavior tuned to a rhythm unlike anything seen today. Fossil evidence suggests that some dinosaurs did not migrate away from the poles during winter. They stayed. They endured. Among the most chilling discoveries are the remains of polar dinosaurs found at latitudes that experience months of total darkness each year. Bone structures show rapid growth, suggesting warm conditions and abundant food. These animals were not strays, they were residents. Antarctica was not a temporary refuge, it was home. And then there were the creatures of the sea. The waters surrounding ancient Antarctica teemed with life so alien it feels pulled from speculative fiction. Giant marine reptiles patrolled the coasts. Plesiosaurs with long necks and flippers the size of doors sliced through warm southern oceans. Mosasaurs, apex predators of the late Cretaceous, dominated the food chain with skulls engineered for annihilation. Some of their remains have been found far closer to the South Pole than scientists once thought possible, confirming that polar oceans were once warm enough to support entire populations of these monsters. Above the waves, primitive birds with teeth dove for fish, while early mammals clung to survival in the shadows, small, warm-blooded, and alert. Life was layered, complex, competitive. Antarctica was not a quiet place. It was loud with movement, predation, and growth. The real horror, however, lies not just in the size of these creatures, but in what their existence reveals about Earth itself. Antarctica did not slowly cool over a gentle timeline. Its transformation was violent on a geological scale. As tectonic plates shifted, the continent drifted toward the South Pole. Ocean gateways opened and closed, the Drake Passage formed, allowing a powerful circumpolar current to isolate Antarctica from warm equatorial waters. Carbon dioxide levels fell. Ice began to form. At first seasonal, then permanent. Forests collapsed. Rivers froze. The monsters vanished. Some species attempted to adapt. Fossil records show declining diversity, shrinking body sizes, and stressed populations. Others disappeared abruptly, victims of a climate shift too extreme, too fast. By around 34 million years ago, Antarctica crossed a threshold from which it would never return. Ice sheets expanded, glaciers scoured the land, grinding ecosystems into extinction and sealing their remains beneath frozen rock. What survived did so elsewhere. What remained in Antarctica was entombed. Today, scientists drill ice cores that read like time machines. Each layer traps ancient air, allowing us to measure past atmospheres with terrifying precision. These cores tell us that Antarctica's jungles existed under carbon dioxide concentrations similar to where humanity is now pushing the planet again. The monsters did not vanish because Antarctica was always doomed. They vanished because the climate changed. And that realization is unsettling, because it means Antarctica is not inherently frozen, it is temporarily so. Beneath the ice, radar mapping reveals buried valleys, ancient river systems, even entire mountain ranges hidden from the sky. Subglacial lakes, sealed off for millions of years, remain liquid under pressure and geothermal heat. Microbial life persists there still, adapted to darkness and isolation, echoing the resilience of ancient ecosystems that once thrived above. The continent remembers. Every fossil leaf pulled from Antarctic rock is a message from a lost world. Every fragment of bone is proof that Earth can become something radically different from what we assume is permanent. The monsters of Antarctic jungles were not aberrations. They were logical outcomes of the planet's conditions at the time. Change the atmosphere, the currents, the temperature, and the impossible becomes inevitable. There's something deeply humbling about that. Antarctica was once green not because it defied nature, but because it followed it. And the monsters that ruled its forests and rivers did so not in defiance of the cold, but in ignorance of it. They lived in a world where ice had not yet learned how to conquer. Their extinction was not heroic, it was not dramatic. It was quiet, slow, relentless. A cooling here, a glacier there, a forest that failed to return one season, a river that stopped flowing. Life withdrew, species by species, until the continent fell silent. And silence in Antarctica became absolute. Today, when we look at the frozen horizon, it feels eternal. But eternity is an illusion written by short memories. The ice is young, the jungle is old, the monsters were real. And if Antarctica could once support forests, rivers, dinosaurs, and apex predators at the bottom of the world, then the question is no longer whether the planet can change. The question is how fast, and what kind of monsters the next world will create.